the State Chamber of Oklahoma's Business Roundtable, presented by Cox Communications. And now, here's your host, Fred Morgan.
Hello and welcome to the State Chamber of Oklahoma's Business Roundtable. We are partnering with Cox Communications to tell stories about businesses and business issues around the state. One of the most important issues for businesses is finding a qualified, quality workforce. And today we're going to have as our special guest Chancellor Glen D of the Oklahoma State Regents for Higher Education. Glenn, welcome to the show.
Well, great to be here, Fred.
This is an important time for businesses across the state, and I want to talk a little bit about education, and particularly higher education. But before we begin, tell our viewers a little bit about you and your family.
Okay, I was born in Oklahoma City. Spent a good part of my elementary and early high school time in Washington, D.C. My dad was earlier in Congress and then chairman of the Oil Import Appeals Board in the Department of Interior. Came back and graduated, went my 10th, 11th, and 12th grade years at Muskogee, graduated from Muskogee High School, and then went to University of Oklahoma for college and law school. Went back to Okemah and practiced law, ran for the legislature in 1982 and served till 96. Got to serve with you for a term, was elected speaker in 1990.
My first speaker.
Exactly, and then spent some time at the law school at OU, and then 10 years as president of Southeastern Oklahoma State University in Durant, and then I've been in this role as chancellor and system head for our higher ed system for about 9.5 years.
9.5 years. So talk about the Oklahoma State Regents for Higher Education. What is it? How is it formed? I know it's included in our Constitution.
It is. We became a state in 1907, Fred, and what we learned early on for about the first 30 years, any area that wanted to start a college or university could do so, and there was really no central coordination in terms of academic programs or a centralized function. Anyone could start a med school or a law school, and so by the late 30s there was a feeling that there needed to be a central entity that coordinated academic programs, that coordinated allocating the appropriation to the areas that cost the most, and to essentially have more of a centralized system. The voters in 1941 approved the creation of the state regents, and so we've been in existence now for essentially right at 76 years. Our chief responsibilities are functions like if an institution in the early years wanted to, there needed to be an institution in a certain area, whether it would be 2-year, 4-year, and of course our two research institutions, University of Oklahoma and OSU, have been in existence since 1890, but the regents have the authority to determine functions and courses of study. Probably most would say that one of their chief responsibilities, and our responsibility, is to make the request to the governor and legislature for the appropriations for the entire system, and then once the appropriation comes back to the regents, to allocate under a formula how that money is distributed to our 25 colleges and universities. We also set tuition and fees. We administer the OneNet telecommunication system, our Oklahoma College Assistance Program, and essentially are the central coordinating group for our state system. I'm often asked, well, what's the difference between the state regents and, say, the OSU A&M regents? While we coordinate for the system, the A&M regents have a governing board that essentially is the management board. They hire the president, they determine what contracts, they manage auxiliary services, whether that be vending or bookstore or whatever that might be. So our system really works well where the state regents coordinate centrally, but each institution has a separate governing board to take care of the day-to-day management and governance of the institution.
Okay, and how many regents are there?
We have 9 regents who are appointed to 9-year terms, and they are geographically distributed under the Constitution around the state. And this year our chair is Regent John Massey from Durant, Oklahoma, and our vice chair is Dr. Ron White here from Oklahoma City, Our Secretary Treasurer is Regent Jay Helm from Tulsa.
Okay. And that's who you report to.
That's who I report to.
Okay. And
A very important group.
especially, yes. So I assume one of the reasons that this was put in place is the Regents for Higher Education is, as you said, to be able to coordinate, but also to make sure that some powerful legislator didn't try to appropriate a lot of money for one college while starving the rest of the colleges.
Well, that drove the decision, and I think it makes sense. As you know, a medical school program, an engineering program, a law school, those programs cost more than, say, a freshman English or history course at one of our institutions. And we take all of that into account under our formula and as we make the allocations. Another advantage, we've worked with you on degree completion with the state chamber. Having a centralized board, when an issue like that becomes a priority, having all the institutions under one coordinating board gives us the chance to get everybody to the table quicker. By virtue of that, we coordinate now the academic plans with the degree completion plans. And of course, our funding formula is geared on increasing retention rates and graduation rates. So all of that, we've been able to coordinate that, where we've been able to bump up our degree completion rate in Oklahoma, where we're comparing very well nationally at this point.
All right, well, we're going to talk some more about that, but we need to take a quick break, and we'll come back with our visit with the Chancellor of Higher Education, Glen Johnson. Come back and join us. Welcome back to our visit with Chancellor Glen Johnson of the Oklahoma Higher Regents. Glen, the last couple of years have been kind of tough on higher ed and the budget proceedings, and that's a big part of your job, is to make sure the resources are available for all of our universities. Talk a little bit about what the budget shortfalls have meant to the whole higher education system.
Well, Fred, last year the higher ed system took the largest cut in state government. We took a 16% cut, which equated to $157 million, on the heels the year before of a cut that was $112 million. So over the last 2 years, two very significant budget reductions at a time where enrollment has been, we've basically had historic highs the last decade. So your enrollment is increasing at a time when your budgets are being cut significantly. So we've seen the elimination system-wide. Now, again, I'm talking about all 25 colleges and universities of over 2,000 positions that were either not filled or in some cases eliminated. We've seen closures of campus sites at Connors State College, elimination of athletic programs at institutions like Redlands and Carl Albert State College. We've seen, I think, some things that have been, I would say, positive. As an example, Southeastern Oklahoma State University and East Central are sharing faculty, and that I think is a trend that we may encourage and hope that it will continue. Southeastern Oklahoma State University and Murray State College actually are sharing a senior business officer between the two institutions. But overall, the cuts have been devastating. Reduction in scholarships, a reduction in programs like our concurrent enrollment program, where students can take college courses while they're in high school and shortens the time to degree. These are the students that will be the completers. And so programs that really go to the heart of what we're trying to do to produce graduates who can meet the job needs and the workforce needs. Back-to-back double-digit reductions in the higher ed appropriation has really been difficult, and again, we're grappling with that this year in the budget process as well.
Is this unique to Oklahoma, or what's going on nationally?
Okay. Yes and no. With the national recession back in 2008, you had about a 4-year period where most of the institutions and most of the systems in the country took rather dramatic budget cuts, as we did in Oklahoma. I think the difference is the last 2 years we've seen an uptick in a lot of our states where they're now making up for lost time, if you will, and reinvesting heavily in higher education. That's not happened here because of our budget situation in Oklahoma. So I would say that over the last 9 years, the first 4 or 5 years, we were went along with the trend, but the last 2 or 3 years, our reductions, this last year, in fact, there was a study that was conducted by the Grapevine Group about 3 months ago, our difference between 2016 and 2017 was the largest drop of any state in the United States in terms of reductions for higher education. So hopefully that will not continue, because the bottom line is we have to have the faculty in the classroom. We need to offer the courses that students can take on time, where they don't have to wait another semester or a year for the course they need to graduate, where they can get out there and get into our workforce. A study by Georgetown University, Fred, came out in February that basically told us by 2020, 3 years from now, 67% of the jobs in Oklahoma will require some college or an associate's degree. 37% of the jobs will require an associate's degree, bachelor's degree, or higher. That's on us. We're really the only entity that can produce the graduates to meet those job needs. And if we don't do that, those jobs will go, as you know, out of state. And that's not what we need to see in Oklahoma.
It is a really important business issue, and paradoxically, while we have a shortage of college graduates in this state, we're also cutting back on higher ed funding. It's hard to explain, and it doesn't show a whole lot of long-term vision for the state, does it?
No, it doesn't, and I want to, along those lines, we thought it would be best to try to explain our role in business terms, which usually makes sense. State Chamber took the lead a couple of years ago and put together a study that basically objectively determined for every dollar the legislature appropriates to our higher education system, $4.62 is returned directly back to the state's economy. So it's really a great return on investment, and our presentation and pitch this year to the governor and legislature has been, we really need to invest in higher education if we're going to have the state that we want to have in 5 years and 10 years. But if we're going to be able to meet these workforce needs that are here right away, we've got to produce the graduates that will fill those job needs. General Levy at Tinker Air Force Base has told me and others he could hire today every graduate from our engineering programs, both at Oklahoma State University and University of Oklahoma. But of course, because of the budget cuts, we're actually having to cut back in those areas. So it's really long term, it's not where we want to be, and that's why we've got to do everything we can to be persuasive to make the case that if you look at return on investment, I would assert that there are very few investments the state can make where you have a better return than the return that we get by investing in higher education.
It's not just the current return on investment that we get, which is great, but it's also sort of the long-term future of the state. I know GE located their research center here because they could be close to not only oil and gas companies, but to the universities as well.
Exactly. We had a study a couple of years ago that showed, no surprise, the states that have a higher percentage of their citizens with college degrees to a state are the states that have the higher per capita incomes and the stronger economies. We want companies like GE to make that decision, and yet we've got to be able to produce the graduates to meet those job needs that require college degrees. A college degree has never been more valuable than it is right now. The Census Bureau data shows that if you compare a college degree holder to a high school diploma holder, on an average during their career, the individual with a college degree will earn over $1.1 million more, and that's probably not even the most important reason to earn a degree. When you look at those with college degrees are healthier, they are more engaged citizens, they're the leaders in their communities. A college degree is really life-changing, and we see that as I get to all of our commencements during this month. You see it just one graduate at a time.
Yeah, I know it was for me and my family. I'm being the first graduate. So, Glenn, we need to take a quick break. We may come back to this topic after the break because it's really important. I hope you'll come back. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with our visit with Chancellor Glen Johnson. Come back. Welcome back to our visit with Chancellor Glen Johnson. Glenn, you talked about in the last segment, you talked a lot about the importance of getting a college degree. And I know Governor Fallon with her Oklahoma Works has illustrated around the state the importance and the gap that we have between the number of college graduates we have and what jobs are going to require for the future. How do you see that? How do we fill that gap?
Well, the way we do it from our end, of course, I think we should commend the governor for bringing everyone together and aligning the education pipeline with career tech and K through 12 and certainly higher education. I mean, from our end, our responsibility is to make sure that we do everything we can to get students through college to where they can earn their degree. We have a number of initiatives, Gear Up, which prepares students in high school for college success, and we've been one of the few states that's been successful in obtaining 3 Gear Up grants in succession. In addition to that, programs like concurrent enrollment that give students opportunities for college credit while in high school. We have partnerships with Career Tech where students can take courses for college credit while they're enrolled in Career Tech. All of those get more students in the pipeline. We have certainly placed much more emphasis, Fred, on retention efforts and graduation efforts. Our performance funding formula rewards institutions that increase those rates, and it's working. And so I think we understand the role we play in producing graduates to meet those workforce needs. The governor, in addition to Workforce Oklahoma, has also recently this year announced the creation of Launch Oklahoma, which is another initiative to fill that skills gap, and higher education plays a big role in both of those initiatives. We support the governor and certainly are pleased to be at the table to help support both of those initiatives.
Now, you created a task force that's going to start meeting very soon. Talk a little bit about your task force.
Okay. Well, first of all, you're going to be a member of it, so thank you for agreeing to do that. We thought, Fred, it's been about 30 years since there's been a comprehensive review of higher education, just in terms of, and during that time, as we all know, there's been an implosion of technology. There have been significant changes in our business models. So we thought it would be important to have a complete comprehensive review of higher education as a system, to look at efficiencies, to look at the online space, to see what we can do there, to look at our structure, to see if we're appropriately aligned. Frankly, the budget has played into this just in terms of sustainability in light of rather significant budget reductions. And so we will be having our first meeting Thursday, May 25th. We're going to be organized into subcommittees. The first, no surprise, will be degree completion and workforce development, which is critically important to higher education's mission. We will also have another subcommittee on academic innovation and online education to encourage things like joint degree programs. As an example, when I was president of Southeastern Oklahoma State University, we partnered with East Central and Ada on nursing, which is an expensive program where we provided the first 2 years, the general education requirements. They brought the third and fourth year, and we were able to save money and have a nursing program that did a lot to address the nursing shortage in southeastern Oklahoma. We want to encourage more joint degree programs in multiple areas. The online space, we've been working the last couple of years basically to remove the barriers for students who want to take some or a good part of their higher education experience online, and we've been making good progress. I think one thing I do want to say, whether a student's taking a course through the traditional methods or through online instruction, the rigor, the academic rigor needs to be the same, and that's been one of the things we'll look at. There's all kinds of new learning platforms. The flipped classroom concept, where you do the work ahead of time and the classroom experience is more of a conversation and setting goals for what you'll do then in the next classroom period. Although the traditional method of a professor lecturing to a class, still we have that in some instances. The professor is the key component in how all of this is structured. Emphasis on massive open online courses, and as an example, where you can bring course content in from a variety of institutions to the classroom at our colleges and universities in Oklahoma. Structure and realignment, we're going to be looking at that, and we're going to be looking at system efficiencies in terms of through our governing boards, coordinating, as an example, back office functions where accounting and payroll and human resources can all be administered centrally to save money. Certainly money can be saved in technology, and we've already started some of those initiatives, but there will be I think it's just an opportunity to take a deep dive and to really look at how, with the changes in technology, we can leverage all that to have a more efficient system to provide a great quality product to our students, but to do it more efficiently.
And sounds great. It sounds like something that's much needed. How big is the task force,
Okay.
and what kind of people do you have on the task force?
Well, we're right at 50 members, which seems like a lot, but then when you break them down to those subcommittees, you'll have essentially about 10 or 12 on each subcommittee, which is a manageable number. A good segment from the business community. Certainly we felt your involvement would be critical, and appreciate you agreeing to do it. But business leaders from a variety of geographic regions in our state and from a variety of businesses. We have some college and university presidents that are serving. We have a few regents. We have others from the foundation areas that are serving. And so I think it's a good cross-section who have, the common thread is they all believe that they're willing to devote some time, and probably a good amount of time, to seeing what we can do to roll up our sleeves and make our system of higher education better. And I need to say, we are doing some things very well. We are, as I think you know, and the State Regents partnered with Governor Fallon on Complete College America, our degree completion initiative. 4 years into that, we're still ahead of our goal, although we're starting to lose ground because of the budget cuts, and that needs to be said. We have great numbers on student debt. Half of our students, from the report that came out in November, half of our students have zero student debt. Those that have debt, the debt is 23% below the national average, and we're in the top 10 states in terms of students leaving our colleges and universities with the least amount of debt.
Yeah, it's a really good bargain.
It is.
Well, we need to take another break, and we'll be back with a few final questions for our guest, Chancellor Glen Johnson. Please come back and join us. Welcome back to our visit with Chancellor Glen Johnson. Glenn, prior to the break, we were talking about the affordability of college in Oklahoma. College debt is a big factor nationally. Tell us a little bit about why Oklahoma colleges are such a bargain.
We've made an effort, Fred, to keep tuition low, even with these budget cuts. In fact, some said last year, don't worry about higher education, they'll just offset their cut with tuition. Didn't happen, nor should it have happened. As it turned out, tuition offset about 58% of the cut. The rest of it was the cuts were imposed. That being said, we have kept tuition the last 9 years below 5%. That's resulted in us being ranked by the U.S. Chamber Foundation as the 5th most affordable state in terms of tuition and fees in the nation. Another study by the U.S. Department of Education ranks us 4th, and U.S. News and World Report just came out with a study that ranked us 6th. So we're viewed nationally very affordable. Among the 16 Southern Regional Education Board states, we rank 16th or lowest in terms of our tuition and fees. So I think we have a good story to tell there. We believe that with the economy being the way it is, we do not want to price our students and parents out of the market. So we've been very cognizant of that. And again, in terms of student debt and overall affordability, I think we've got a great presentation for what Oklahoma higher education offers, a quality product at a very affordable cost.
Well, I know over the last couple of years you've been very patient in dealing with the legislature, and hopefully we will get back on track with investing in higher ed. Appreciate your being here today.
Oh, you bet.
Good luck with the task force. I know that there's a lot to do there, so thank you. I hope you'll come back and report on the efforts of the task force.
I will, and thanks for the opportunity to be here today. Looking forward to you being on the task force with us.
Very good. Well, and thank you for being with us today, and we hope you'll join us again as we continue to talk about business stories and have business guests from around our state. Come back and join us next time.
Thank you for watching the State Chamber of Oklahoma's Business Roundtable, presented by Cox Communications. If you have questions about this program, email the Chamber at okstatechamber.com. Set furnishings provided by Scott Rice, creating effective workspace from the floor to the ceiling and everything in between.